Welcome in and welcome down, and welcome to this quiet hour that belongs to you. Before we begin, take a moment to settle. Let your shoulders soften. Let the small weight of the day slip from the back of your neck, down your arms, out through the tips of your fingers. There's nothing to solve tonight, nothing to remember, nothing to hold. The only thing you are asked to do is listen, and even that only lightly, the way you might listen to rain on a window pane, or to a kettle beginning to warm on a low stove. Feel the surface beneath you, the mattress, or the pillow, or the folded arm of the couch. Notice how it holds you without effort, without asking anything in return. Let it. Let yourself be held. Take a slow breath in and out. Another, if you would. In and out. With each breath, you can feel the room around you grow a little softer at the edges. The lamps, if there are lamps, become a little further away. The corners of the ceiling become a little kinder. Tonight, you are going to visit a very old, very gentle place. A conservatory of green and rose glass, resting beneath the still surface of a shallow lagoon. It was built long ago to grow orchids for a seaside spa, and though the spa is gone, the glass remains, quiet and untroubled, filled with slow water and slower light. Inside, it stand the tidal looms, patient underwater frames strung with kelp fibers that weave themselves whenever the current moves through, needing only the softest attention from time to time. You are going to keep company with the Loom-Tuner, whose name is Ilva. She is soft-spoken. She moves with the unhurried grace of someone who has learned, over many years, that the water will not be rushed, and neither will she. You will not need to speak with her. You will not need to remember anything about her. You will simply be near, the way a small fish might be near, drifting alongside without needing to be noticed. The rule of the conservatory is gentleness. Every motion is slowed by water. Nothing is ever finished in a hurry. Nothing needs to be. So, let your breathing settle one more time. Feel the pillow beneath your head. Feel the covers over your shoulders. Feel the quiet expanding gently around you. And now, in your own good time, let us begin the slow descent together. You are standing on a low wooden platform above the lagoon. The afternoon sun is warm on your back, and the wood is dry beneath your bare feet, sun-bleached to the color of pale honey. Around you, the lagoon spreads out, shallow, glass still, no wider than a small pond, ringed by soft grasses and old stones. The water is so clear that from here, you can already see the pale green curve of the conservatory dome beneath the surface, glowing faintly where the sunlight touches it. A wooden stair leads down from the platform. Its steps are tiled with small blue and cream tiles, dulled by long use, warm under your feet where they still catch the sun, cool where they descend into shade. Beside a stair, hanging from a cedar peg, is Ilva's canvas diving smock. It is soft with age, dyed the color of old moss, patched here and there with careful stitches. There is a matching one nearby, waiting if you would like it. You may imagine yourself slipping it on if that pleases you, or you may simply follow along, unseen, unweighted, drifting through the story like a thought through slow water. Either way is welcome. Ilva is already at the top of the stair. She is a small woman, wiry and unhurried, with silver brown hair braided down her back in a long, loose plait. Her face is weathered by sun and salt in the way that stones near the sea are weathered. Smooth, patient, unbothered. She hums a little to herself, a tune with no clear beginning or end, the kind of tune a person hums when they have been alone happily for many years. She pulls the canvas smock over her simple linen shift and ties it at the waist with a length of woven cord. She checks the small satchel at her hip. Inside it, a set of carved wooden pegs, a spool of pale spun sea silk, and a soft brush made from horsehair. From another peg, she takes a thermos, ceramic and copper, its lid tightly stoppered against the water. Inside it is warm barley tea, faintly sweet, faintly toasted, still steaming from the little stove up in her cottage on the shore. She tucks the thermos into a loop at her belt. Then, without ceremony, she begins to descend. The first step is warm. The second is warm. The third, cooler. By the fourth, water touches her ankles, clear and mild. And by the sixth, the water is at her knees. And by the ninth, at her waist. The water is the temperature of a bath that has been sitting a little while. Not cold, not warm, only kind. She keeps descending. The stair passes through a curved arch of iron and glass, half buried in silt, half covered in soft green weed. Beyond the arch, the water opens into the conservatory proper, and the light changes, becomes filtered, muted, dappled through panes of green and rose. Take a slow breath now. At the edge of this arch, there's no need to hold your breath in this place. The story allows you to move through the water as easily as through cool air. Your lungs may fill and empty as they always do. Your body may rest, always, easy and buoyant, held. Now, step through. The conservatory unfolds around you like a slow, painted room. It is larger inside than it seemed from above. A wide, gently domed hall, ribbed with slender iron beams, paned in alternating panels of pale green and dusty rose glass. Where the sun catches the green, the water below turns the color of new leaves. Where it catches the rose, it turns the color of a peach at the moment of ripeness. The two colors overlap in soft, slow patterns on the floor, shifting whenever a ripple passes overhead. The floor is old mosaic. Small tiles in cream and blue and gold, laid in a spiral pattern, worn smooth by decades of slow feet and slow water. Between the tiles, fine silt has settled, pale, soft as sifted flour. When you take a step, the silt lifts around your foot in slow spirals, and drifts, and takes a long, unhurried time to settle again. You notice gradually the looms. They stand in rows down the length of the conservatory. Tall, waterlogged cedar frames, taller than a person, their beams darkened by years of soaking into a color that is neither brown nor gray, but something older, something the color of a stone at the bottom of a river. Between the beams, strung vertically, are the kelp warps, long strands of dried and re-soaked kelp fiber, twisted and plied into threads finer than you would think possible, arranged in patient, even rows. The horizontal wefts move slowly across them, driven by the small, steady current that flows through the conservatory whenever the tide is turning. And listen to the sound of it. The kelp warps hum, not loudly, not like a string plucked in a room, but softly, the way a wine glass hums when a finger circles its rim. Each loom hums at its own pitch, its own patience, and together they make a low, layered, almost inaudible chord that seems to come from every direction at once. Below the hum, there's another sound, the muffled clink of ceramic weights, small and round and glazed, hung along the bottom edges of the warps to keep them true. They knock against one another very gently as the current shifts, and the sound is like distant wind chimes heard through a closed window, a soft, muted clinking, unhurried, endlessly patient. Below that, there's the soft creak of the cedar frames themselves, waterlogged and old, adjusting to the slow push and pull of the tide. It is the same kind of creak an old boat makes at a quiet dock. A friendly sound, a sound that has been going on for a very long time, and will go on for a very long time more. You breathe it in, the sound, the light, the quiet green rose air of the place. Above you, the domed panes shimmer. Around you, the looms hum. Beneath you, the tiles glow. Ilva is already several paces ahead, moving in slow, buoyant strides between the frames. She walks the way one walks in shallow water, knees lifting a little higher than on land, arms drifting slightly outward for balance, hair floating around her shoulders in a slow halo. Every footfall is soft, cushioned by silt, absorbed by water. You follow. There is no need to hurry to catch her. She will not go far, and the space between you is not a distance so much as a companionable pause. She stops at the first loom. She reaches into her satchel and takes out the horsehair brush. With slow, patient strokes, she brushes silt from the top beam of the frame, and the silt drifts upward and outward and away, dissolving into the soft green water, like breath dissolving into a cold morning. Then she leans in and lays the flat of her palm against the warp threads and closes her eyes. She is listening with her hand. She is feeling the hum of the kelp against her skin, checking the tension, the temper, the mood of the loom. After a long moment, she nods once to herself and reaches into her satchel again. This time, she takes out one of the small carved wooden pegs. She reaches high on the frame to a row of tuning holes drilled in the cedar and slips the peg out of its socket. She turns it a quarter turn. She slides it back in. The hum of the loom changes, only slightly, settles into a pitch a shade lower, a shade rounder, a shade more at ease. She listens again. She nods again. She moves on. You watch her do this at the second loom, and the third. Each one takes a long, unhurried time. Each one is different. Some she barely touches. Some she brushes carefully for many minutes before she is satisfied. One loom she does not tune at all. She only rests her palm on it and smiles a little and says something so quietly to it that you cannot hear the words, only the fondness of the tone. The light shifts as she works. A cloud must be passing overhead somewhere far above the lagoon, because the green and rose panels dim briefly, and the ribbons of light on the mosaic floor grow soft and gentle. Then the cloud passes, and the light brightens again, and the ribbons return, pale green, dusty rose, slow moving, unhurried. And now, drifting up from between the looms, comes the cuttlefish. It is small, no longer than a hand, with a body shaped like a smooth, pale oval, and 8 short arms trailing behind it in an elegant fringe. Its eyes are large and calm, the shape of 2 thoughtful crescent moons. Its skin ripples with color, and this is the wonderful thing about it. The color is never quite still. When it drifts beneath a green pane, its skin turns a soft, mottled green. When it drifts beneath a rose pane, it flushes gently pink. When it passes between the two, it becomes a slow, dreamlike mixture of both, as if it were painted in watercolor, and the paint were still wet. The cuttlefish knows Ilva. It drifts up beside her and matches her pace, and hovers just off her shoulder as she works. It has no name that anyone knows, and it needs none. It is simply the cuttlefish who lives in the conservatory and who keeps her company on the afternoon rounds, and who has been doing so for as long as she can remember. It notices you too. It turns its calm crescent eyes toward you, once, without alarm, without shyness. Its skin ripples through a soft, welcoming lavender, and then settles back into the pale green of the pane above. It has accepted you as part of the afternoon. You may drift alongside it, if you like. It will not mind. Ilva reaches the fourth loom, and here she pauses longer than before. This one, she tells the cuttlefish quietly, has been out of temper for 2 days. She says this not with worry, but with the sort of interest one has in a friend's mood. A curiosity, a patient willingness to sit with it until it changes. She unwinds a small length of pale sea silk from her spool. The sea silk is the color of the inside of a shell, creamy, iridescent, catching the green rose light in tiny, slow flickers as she draws it out. She threads it, with the slow deliberateness of water itself, through a loose place in the warp, and ties it with a knot she has tied 10,000 times. She tugs it, tests it. It holds. She smiles again, and moves her hand across the whole face of the loom, as if smoothing a bedsheet. The kelp threads hum a little more evenly. The clink of the ceramic weights beneath grows a little more regular, a little more like a slow, calm heartbeat. She stands back. The cuttlefish drifts a lazy circle around the top of the frame, admiring, and its skin flushes briefly into a warm, satisfied bronze before returning to green. By now, you have grown used to the light of this place, used to the hum, the clink, the creak, used to the slow spirals of silt around your feet, used to the buoyancy of your own body, which is less like walking than like a very gentle, endless leaning. There is no urgency here. There is no clock. There is only the tide, and the tide moves at its own pace, and the looms follow the tide, and Ilva follows the looms, and you follow Ilva, and the cuttlefish follows the light. And in this way, the afternoon unfolds, quiet and rounded, without edges. Let us keep going. Ilva leads you now down a long central aisle between 2 rows of looms, deeper into the conservatory. Here the ceiling arches highest. The dome rises above you in a great, gentle curve, ribbed with slender iron beams that meet in a rosette at the very top. Small barnacles cluster along the ironwork, pale and closed, sleeping in the mild water. A few strands of green weed drift down from the crown of the dome, like long, slow banners in a breezeless hall. At the far end of the aisle stands a wide, low workbench, carved from a single beam of cedar, so old that it has taken on the deep tea-dark color of long soaking. The bench is set with all of Ilva's small tools, a row of carved pegs standing upright in a little rack, a coil of sea silk on a wooden spool, a shallow ceramic dish filled with polished pebbles used as counterweights, and a stack of small folded cloths waiting patiently for whatever they might be needed for. Ilva sets her satchel down on the bench. She takes her thermos from her belt. She uncaps it slowly, and even underwater, in that muffled way sound moves in water, you can hear the soft hiss as the warm barley tea steam meets the cool water of the conservatory. The steam rises in small silver curls, then pauses, then dissolves. The rich, toasted, faintly sweet smell of barley tea reaches you, or perhaps you only imagine it does, but the imagining is enough. She pours a small measure of the tea into the cap of the thermos and lifts it to her lips. She sips. She closes her eyes for a moment, tasting it. The warmth, the earthiness, the faint sweetness that comes from a spoonful of dark honey added at the bottom of the pot. Salt sits on her lips from the water and mingles with the sweetness of the tea. And the two flavors make a small, particular kind of happiness that she has never grown tired of. She caps the thermos again. She tucks it into a small nook carved into a piece of coral that has been fitted long ago into the side of the workbench. The nook holds the thermos snugly, and the coral itself is soft pink, veined with white, warmed slightly by the tea. She turns then and looks back down the aisle at the looms she has already tuned. She looks at them the way a gardener looks at rows of well-tended plants, with quiet, unshowy pride, not the pride of achievement, but the pride of good company. They hum at her, low and even, and the ceramic weights clink like far-off bells, and the cedar creaks softly, and the whole conservatory sighs contentedly into the turning tide. Now she sets to work on the looms at this deeper end. These, she tells the cuttlefish softly, are the older ones. Their cedar has darkened almost to black. Their warps are thicker, spun with a coarser kelp that gives them a deeper, throatier hum, a hum that you feel in your chest more than in your ears. Their weights are larger, smooth, hand-thrown ceramic beads the size of small plums, glazed in the same soft green and rose as the panels overhead. She moves to the first of them. She brushes it. She listens to it with a palm. She adjusts a peg, a slow quarter turn, then another quarter, then a settling pause. The loom hums a little more warmly. She moves to the next. She brushes. She listens. She adjusts. She waits. The loom hums. She moves to the next. Time in the conservatory is not counted by minutes, but by looms. By the 12th loom, the light on the mosaic floor has shifted a little. The ribbons of green and rose have tilted. The sun outside has moved along its slow arc. But here, beneath the water, it is only known by the tilting of the ribbons, and by nothing else. The cuttlefish drifts up to the high dome and hovers there for a while, near a large rose-colored pane, its skin blooming into a soft, dreamy pink. It stays there so long, so still, that if you were not paying close attention, you might mistake it for a piece of the pane itself, a bit of colored glass that had loosened and floated free. Then it drifts down again, slow as a falling leaf, and returns to Ilva's side, and its skin turns green once more to match the pane above her. You notice, as you move deeper, that the floor is not flat. It slopes gently downward, a slow tilt into the deeper part of the conservatory, and the water grows a little cooler, a little more still, a little more velvet in its texture. Silt lies thicker here, and the spirals it makes when you step are broader and slower, taking a great while to settle. The looms in this deeper end are the very oldest. Some of them are draped with soft green sleeves of algae. Some have small pale anemones nestled at the base of their frames, opening and closing their fringed mouths in the mild current, feeding on nothing you can see. Ilva does not tune these deep looms often. They have found their own tuning long ago, she says, and it is not for her to change. She only visits them, brushes them once or twice, and then rests her palm on their frames, the way one rests a hand on the shoulder of a very old friend. Their hum is deeper still, the low note beneath the whole chord of the conservatory. Without them, the music of the place would lack its floor. She sits down for a moment on a low stone bench that has been placed here between two of the deep looms, worn smooth by decades of quiet sitting. The bench is warm, warmer than the water around it, as though a small kindness had been folded into the stone long ago and had never quite left. She rests her hands on her knees. She listens. You may sit too, if you like. There is more than enough room. The stone will hold you as gently as it holds her. Feel the low hum of the deep looms passing through your body, a slow, warm vibration in your chest, in your ribs, in the soft small of your back. Let it settle you. Let it settle into you. The cuttlefish drifts down and hovers just in front of Ilva's face. Its skin ripples slowly through a gentle progression of colors. Pale gold, then soft lavender, then a mottled cream and green, then back to pale gold. Ilva watches it with something like a smile, and after a long moment, she raises one finger, and the cuttlefish reaches out one small, elegant arm and touches the tip of its arm to the tip of her finger, briefly, softly, the way two very old friends might touch hands across a table. Then it drifts back a little and turns rose pink and drifts up toward the ceiling, and Ilva laughs, a small, quiet laugh that makes no sound at all in the water, but shows only in the crinkling at the corners of her eyes. She stands in her slow, buoyant way and moves on. The afternoon deepens. The tide is turning now. She can feel it in the way the current has softened, has gone almost still, is preparing to move in the other direction. The kelp warps hum a shade differently at the turn of the tide, a hum like a held breath. The ceramic weights clink less. The frames creak more, settling into the pause between one direction and the other. Ilva likes this hour best. The turning of the tide is when the conservatory feels most itself, poised, undecided, quiet, in a way that has weight to it. She takes her thermos down again from the coral nook. She uncaps it. She pours another small measure of barley tea, and this time she offers a sip in her mind to the conservatory itself, not because the conservatory can drink, but because kindnesses ought to be shared, even in imagination. The steam curls up in silver ribbons. The salt on her lips meets the sweetness of the tea. She drinks. She caps the thermos and tucks it back into the coral nook. And now she opens a small drawer in the workbench that you had not noticed before. From the drawer, she takes a folded square of soft cloth, and inside the cloth is a piece of finished weaving, a small, palm-sized square of sea silk fabric, pale and creamy, patterned with faint, iridescent stripes. This is what the looms make, patiently, over the course of weeks and months, and sometimes years. The finished cloth is soft as breath. It weighs almost nothing. Held up to the light of the panes, it seems to hold the green and the rose inside itself, faintly glowing. She does not sell it. She does not use it for anything in particular. Once each season, a fisherman friend comes by boat and takes a small folded stack of the finished cloth and gives some of it to elders in the coastal villages who use it for babies' blankets and for the wrapping of newborn things and for lining the small wooden boxes in which precious letters are kept. But that is a story for another day. For now, the cloth simply exists. Proof, quiet and unshowy, that patience and slow water and kind attention make something worth keeping. Ilva folds the cloth again and returns it to the drawer and closes the drawer with the same slowness with which she does everything. She continues her rounds. There is one loom in the very back of the conservatory that she saves for last. It is smaller than the others, tucked into a rounded alcove where the wall of the dome meets the floor. Its cedar is the palest of any loom in the conservatory, nearly the color of old cream, and its warps are strung with the finest kelp fibers, so fine that they are almost invisible in the water. They hum at the very top of the conservatory's chord, a soft, bright, high note that seems almost to sparkle. She loves this loom. It was the first one she ever tuned when she was very young, when she first came to this place with an old teacher whose name you do not need to know. The teacher taught her one thing on that first day, and it is the same thing Ilva still tells herself every afternoon at the small, pale loom in the alcove. The teaching is only this: listen first and act second, and act only as much as listening asks. Nothing more, nothing less. She rests her palm on the small loom. She listens. The kelp threads sing their high, sparkling note into the flat of her hand. She waits. After a long moment, she smiles and takes her hand away. Today, the small loom needs nothing. Today, it is exactly in its own good tuning. She bows her head to it, briefly, and turns away. The cuttlefish has followed her all this way, of course. It hovers now over her shoulder, its skin pale and pearlescent, matching the small loom perfectly. She reaches back and, without looking, extends one finger. The cuttlefish touches it, briefly, as it did before. Then it drifts up and up toward the dome, where a shaft of afternoon sun is coming down in a long, slow ribbon of pale green light. And the cuttlefish rises into that ribbon, and its skin catches the color, and for a moment, it seems to become the light itself, a small living pane of green glass drifting in the warm, shallow water of the Sunken Conservatory. You watch it. Ilva watches it. The looms hum, the weights clink, the cedar creaks, the tide turns. Nothing at all is happening, and yet everything that needs to happen is happening, and it is enough. Let this feeling settle in you now, the feeling of enough, of nothing needing to be more than it already is, of the slow, muffled clink of ceramic weights beneath green and rose light, of the low, warm hum of kelp fibers against the tide, of the soft creak of waterlogged cedar frames, of salt on the lips, of the warm ribbon of tea meeting the cool ribbon of water, of a small cuttlefish drifting up into a shaft of green sun. There is more of the afternoon still to come, but it will unfold slowly and gently, and there will be nothing to catch, nothing to hold. If you are already drifting a little, if the edges of the story are already growing soft, that is only right. That is only well. Ilva returns to the workbench. She moves in her slow, buoyant way down the long central aisle, past the looms she has tuned, past the looms she has brushed, past the looms she has only touched. Each of them hums to her as she passes, and she hums a little back, without quite knowing she is doing it. At the workbench, she opens another small drawer, this one lower, near the floor, and takes from it a bundle wrapped in oiled cloth. Inside the bundle is her afternoon meal. She unwraps it slowly. There's a small round of dark bread, dense and seeded, still faintly warm from the oven up in her cottage on the shore. There's a wedge of pale, hard cheese, wrapped in a leaf. There's a handful of dried figs, dark and sweet-smelling. There's a small jar of honey, tightly sealed. She sits down on the low stone bench near the workbench, a different bench from the one in the deep alcove, this one carved with a spiral pattern along its edge. and she eats slowly. She tears the bread with her fingers, and it comes apart in soft, ragged pieces. She lays a thin slice of cheese on each piece. She dips one corner of one piece into the honey, and the honey clings to it in a slow amber thread. She lifts it to her mouth. She chews. She swallows. She takes a fig and eats it whole, seeds and all, and the sweetness of it fills her mouth like a small, warm memory. She sips barley tea from the thermos cap between bites. The tea is still warm. The thermos is well made, and the warmth spreads through her chest in a slow, kind blossom. Salt on her lips, sweetness of the fig, toasted grain of the tea, the dense, earthy chew of the bread, the mild, milky bite of the cheese. The cuttlefish drifts nearby, uninterested in the food itself. Cuttlefish do not eat bread, but interested in the company and in the little slow motion movements of her hands as she tears and lifts and sips. She eats without hurry. There is no reason to hurry. The tide will turn at its own pace. The looms will hum on. The light will shift by fractions on the mosaic floor. When she is done, she folds the oiled cloth around the small crumbs of bread and the leaf that held the cheese and tucks the bundle back into the drawer. She takes one last sip of tea and caps the thermos and returns it to the coral nook. She rises and stretches in a slow, careful way, arms lifted overhead, fingers spread, hair floating around her shoulders. Her body sighs a little inside itself, the kind of sigh a body gives when it has been well fed and well attended to and asked to do nothing but sit for a while. Now she does something you have not seen her do yet. She walks in her slow, buoyant way to the very center of the conservatory, where the mosaic tiles form the exact heart of the spiral pattern on the floor. A small round of pale gold tiles surrounded by widening circles of blue and cream. She stands on the gold circle. She closes her eyes. Above her, the dome arches high. The green and rose panes shimmer. The shaft of afternoon sun comes down through a clear pane and falls right into the gold circle, warming the tiles, warming her feet. The cuttlefish drifts down and hovers just above her head, and its skin turns a soft, matching gold. She listens to the whole conservatory at once. Every loom, every hum, every clink, every creak, every drifting spiral of silt, every soft anemone opening and closing at the base of every darkened frame, every barnacle sleeping on every iron rib, every strand of green weed drifting slow as thought from the crown of the dome. It is a chord. It is the chord of the place, low and layered and unhurried, held by the tide, released by the tide, held again, released again. It is the sound of the Sunken Conservatory being exactly itself, on an ordinary afternoon, with no one but a Loom-Tuner and a cuttlefish and a quiet listener to hear it. You listen with her. You feel the chord pass through your body, through your slow, buoyant limbs, through the small, warm center of your chest. You feel your breathing settle into it. Or perhaps it was already settled. Perhaps it has been settling for many minutes now, without your quite noticing. The chord holds you. The tide holds you. The green rose light holds you. Stay here as long as you like. After a while, Ilva opens her eyes, slowly. She looks around the conservatory, a soft, sweeping, unhurried look, and she nods once to no one and everyone. The afternoon rounds are complete. The looms are tended. The tide is turning. The tea is warm. The cuttlefish is nearby. Everything is as it ought to be. She begins the slow walk back down the length of the conservatory toward the tiled stair. But she takes her time. She stops at 3 or 4 looms along the way, not to tune them, only to lay a palm briefly against each one, only to say a wordless goodbye until tomorrow. Each loom hums a little at her touch, warm as a friend hummed too. You follow her, still buoyant, still slow, still cradled by the mild water. The cuttlefish follows too, drifting a leisurely arc between the frames, its skin shifting through soft greens and roses and creams in a lazy, sleepy sequence. It knows that when Ilva reaches the stair, it will stay behind and drift up to the dome and hover in a shaft of the last long light and grow slowly, contentedly still, and remain there until the water grows cool and dim and the moonlight begins to filter down through the panes. But that is not yet. That is later. For now, the 3 of you make your slow way back down the aisle. The mosaic floor spirals beneath your feet. Silt lifts around your ankles in soft, unhurried curls. The green rose light dapples the tiles. The hum of the looms recedes a little behind you, gentler and gentler as you move away from the deep end and back toward the shallow. You reach the arched doorway of iron and glass, half buried in silt, half covered in soft green weed. Ilva pauses there and turns and looks back over her shoulder at the conservatory one more time, as she does every afternoon. The looms hum, the weights clink, the cedar creaks, the tide turns. The cuttlefish drifts up toward the dome. She smiles the small, private smile of someone leaving a place she loves for the small distance of an evening, knowing she will return in the morning, and everything will be waiting for her, as patient as ever. She turns and begins to climb the tiled stair. 1 step, 2, 3. The water at her waist, then at her thighs, then at her knees. The temperature of the water shifting, degree by slow degree, from cool to mild to almost warm as she rises toward the sun. The green rose light thinning, brightening, giving way slowly to the plain gold of ordinary afternoon light. But you do not need to climb with her. You may stay a little longer if you like. You may drift back into the conservatory, or hover near the archway, or float upward and rest against the inside of the dome, feeling the pane warm against your cheek, hearing the muffled hum of the looms rise softly through the water around you. There is no requirement to leave. The conservatory does not close. It only quiets, as the day quiets, as the tide quiets, as the light softens. Rest here for a while. Let your body sink a little further into the pillow. Let your shoulders soften a little more. Let the covers hold you, the way the water holds the cuttlefish, the way the tide holds the looms, the way the dome holds the light. The hum of the kelp fibers is very low now, very warm. The clink of the ceramic weights is very soft. The creak of the cedar frames is very slow. Silt drifts in wide, patient spirals across the mosaic floor. Above, through the panes, the afternoon light is deepening toward evening. The rose panels are darkening to a dusky pink. The green panels are darkening to a deep sea glass green. The shafts of sun on the tiles are narrowing, sliding slowly across the mosaic, growing thinner and thinner as the sun slips lower over the shore. The cuttlefish is at the top of the dome now, hovering in the last long ribbon of gold. Its skin has settled into a soft, warm bronze. Its crescent eyes are half closed. Its small arms drift gently around it, as loose and easy as sleeping fingers. It is not asleep. It is only very, very still. You feel very, very still, too. Notice your breathing. It has slowed. It has softened. It moves in and out of you like a very small, very kind tide. In and out. In and out. Notice your body. It is heavier than it was when we began. Heavier in the good way. The way stones are heavy when they have settled into the bed of a stream. The way an old blanket is heavy on a cool evening. The way a well-fed animal is heavy in the sun. Notice your thoughts. If any are drifting through, let them drift. They are only silt, spiraling slow and gentle across the floor of a sunken conservatory. They will settle when they are ready. There is no need to move them. The looms hum. The weights clink. The cedar creaks. The tide turns. There's warm barley tea in a thermos in a coral nook. There's a small folded square of sea silk in a drawer in a cedar workbench. There's a cuttlefish resting in the last ribbon of gold. There's a small pale loom in a rounded alcove in perfect tuning, needing nothing. There's Ilva climbing the tiled stair, humming her tuneless tune, water dripping softly from the hem of her canvas smock. She will reach her cottage. She will hang the smock on its cedar peg. She will boil more water. She will pour more tea. She will sit in a small chair by a small window that looks out over the lagoon and watch the sun set the surface to gold and think quietly of nothing in particular. But you do not have to follow her. You may stay here at the bottom in the soft green rose water, held by the slow chord of the looms. Let it hold you now. The hum, the clink, the creak, salt on the lips, warm tea steam meeting cool water, silt drifting in slow spirals, green light, rose light, green light, rose light, the cuttlefish still as a leaf, the loom humming its low, warm note, the tide turning, turned. You are held. You are warm. You are far from anything that needs you. Nothing to solve. Nothing to remember. Nothing to hold. Only the slow water. Only the slow light. Only the slow hum. Rest now. Rest, and let the conservatory rest around you. The looms will hum on without you. The tide will turn on without you. The cuttlefish will drift on without you. You are allowed to sleep. You are allowed to sleep. The panes above you dim, slowly, toward evening. The light grows softer. The hum grows lower. The clink grows quieter. The creak grows further away. Further. Green, rose, warm, held, slow. Sleep now. Sleep. And if you are still here, still listening, still floating in the soft green rose water at the bottom of the conservatory, that is perfectly fine. There is no hurry to leave. There is no hurry to stay. The water holds you either way. The panes above you continue their slow dimming. The green glass grows deeper, the color of moss in a shaded valley. The rose glass grows softer, the color of the inside of a shell. Between them, the light mingles and settles on your skin like a very light blanket, warm from the drying rack. You can feel the slow rise and fall of the tide against the tiled walls. It is barely a movement at all now, more like a long, slow breath. In and out. In and out. The conservatory breathes, and you breathe with it, without effort, without thought. Somewhere above, on the tiled stair, Ilva has reached her cottage. You do not see her, but you know it, the way you know the shape of a room in the dark. The cedar peg has received her smock. The kettle has been set upon its little iron ring. The chair by the window has creaked its familiar creak. She is sitting now with her tea, watching the gold spread across the lagoon. She is thinking of nothing in particular. She is happy in the small, quiet way that people are happy when they have done their work and the day is folding itself gently closed. You do not need to sit with her. You do not need to speak to her. She is only there, and you are only here, and the conservatory holds both of you, and the tide turns beneath. The looms hum on, low, warm, a single sustained chord, the way an organ pipe holds a note long past the moment when a listener would expect it to end. It does not end. It only continues, softer and softer, until it is less a sound than a warmth in the water around you. The clink of the small ceramic weights against the tile has slowed. There are long spaces between each clink now, spaces filled with the soft settling of silt, with the slow drift of a pale ribbon of kelp, with the almost inaudible sigh of the panes cooling as the day gives up its heat. Clink, and then a long quiet. Clink, and then a longer quiet. The creak of the wooden frame has moved further off, into some distant corner of the conservatory where you cannot quite locate it. It is the creak of a house settling for the night. It is the creak of a boat at anchor. It is the creak of a chair being sat into by someone who is very tired and very content. You are very tired. You are very content. The cuttlefish has moved at some point, though you did not see it move. It is now resting on a shelf of pale stone, its fins folded in against its body, its eyes half closed, in the way of creatures who have decided that the day is done. Its color has settled into a soft, even lavender, the color of the sky just after the last edge of the sun has slipped away. It is asleep, or something like asleep. It dreams, perhaps, in slow bands of color, the way it lived. You may dream that way too, if you like, in slow bands, green, rose, lavender, gold, whatever comes. Nothing needs to be decided. The salt on your lips has dried to the faintest whisper. The warm tea steam from Ilva's cottage far above has long since dissolved into the cool evening air. The silt in the water has settled, slowly, slowly, until the water is clear and dim and still. You can feel the tile beneath you, smooth, cool where it touches your back, warmer where it has kept the day's sun. You can feel the water around you, soft, close, holding you the way water holds a leaf that has fallen and no longer needs to swim. You are the leaf. You are held. You do not need to swim. Above you, one of the tall window panes catches a last thread of light, a thin band of pale gold along its upper edge, and holds it, and holds it, and then, gradually, lets it go. The pane goes dim. The next pane, beside it, holds its own thin band of gold a moment longer, and then, gradually, lets it go too. One by one, along the long wall of the conservatory, the panes release the day. Green, rose, green, rose, and then softer, indigo, and then softer still, a color that has no name, the color of a room when the lamp has just been turned down but not yet turned out. You are in that color now. The conservatory is in that color now. The whole lagoon is in that color now. Somewhere, a small bell rings, only once, not to summon anyone, not to warn anyone, only to mark the passing of the day into the night, the way a small bell has always marked such passings in places like this, for as long as places like this have been. The sound spreads outward through the water in a slow, warm ring and reaches you and passes through you and continues on. You feel it pass. You feel it go. You are lighter after it has gone. The looms have slowed to almost nothing. Their hum is now the hum of a room that has been sung in and is remembering the song. It is not quite silence. It is the shape silence takes when it has just recently been sound. The clink has stopped. You did not notice when. The last clink was some time ago, and no new clink has come, and the small ceramic weights are resting now, resting against the tile, the way you are resting against the tile, done with their day. The creak has stopped, too. The wooden frame has settled. The whole conservatory has settled. It is the settled kind of quiet, the deep kind, the kind that comes only after a long day of gentle work well done. You are settled. You are quiet. You are done. There's nothing more to do. There's nothing more to see. There's nothing more to hold. Only the slow water. Only the slow light. Dimmer now, dimmer still. Only the slow, slow breath of the tide, in and out, so slow you can barely tell one breath from the next. Your own breath has slowed to meet it. In and out, without effort, without thought. You are not asleep. You are not awake. You are the soft place between, the warm place between, the place where nothing is required. If a thought comes, it drifts by like the pale ribbon of kelp, and you do not have to catch it. Let it drift. Let it go where the water is going. The water is going nowhere. The thought will go nowhere too. If a memory comes, it settles like silt, slowly, softly, to some deep and quiet floor. You do not have to look at it. It will keep. It will keep for as long as you need. If a small sound comes, the last small sound of the conservatory releasing itself into night, it passes through you like the ring of the bell, and you are lighter after it has passed. Lighter, and lighter, and lighter. The cuttlefish on its shelf of pale stone has grown a little paler. The lavender has softened into the palest gray. It is dreaming its slow banded dream. It is content. Ilva, in her cottage, has set down her empty cup. She has drawn a soft wool blanket over her knees. The gold on the lagoon has cooled to a deep evening blue, and she is watching it without watching, the way one watches a fire that is burned down to embers. Her eyes are heavy. Her hands are still. She is happy. The conservatory holds them both, Ilva and the cuttlefish, and it holds you also the same way, with the same soft attention, with no preference for one over the other. All three of you are guests of the slow water. All three of you are welcome. All three of you may stay for as long as you like. And now, the last thread of light along the last pane lets go. The conservatory is dim now, a dim so soft it is almost warm. The kind of dim that comes into a nursery when the lamp is turned very low and the door is left just a little open so the child knows the house is still there. The house is still there. The conservatory is still there. The lagoon is still there. The looms, the weights, the panes, the tiled stair, the cedar pegs, the small chairs by small windows, all still there. Nothing has gone. Nothing needs to go. It is only that you no longer need to hold any of it in your mind. It will hold itself. It has always held itself. You may set it down. Set down the conservatory. Set down the water. Set down the light. Set down the hum. Set down the clink and the creak. Set down the salt on your lips in the warmth of the tile. Set down Ilva and her cottage and her cup. Set down the cuttlefish on its pale stone shelf. Set it all down, gently, the way you would set down a small warm bowl at the end of a meal, carefully, but without ceremony. It is done. It has served. You may rest. Rest. Rest now. Your breath is slow. Your body is warm. Your mind is quiet. If you are still following the words, let them slow, too. Let them come further apart. Let them fade at the edges. They have done their work. They may go where the light has gone. The looms hum on without you. The tide turns on without you. The cuttlefish dreams on without you. You are not needed. Not here. Not now. It is a very kind thing to not be needed. Let it be kind to you. Green, rose, green, rose. Softer, softer. The color with no name. The quiet with no edge. The warmth with no source. You are held. You are warm. You are far from anything that needs you. Nothing to solve. Nothing to remember. Nothing to hold. Only rest. Only rest. Only rest. The last hum of the looms fades into the tile. The tile fades into the water. The water fades into the dim. The dim fades into itself. Sleep. Sleep. And let the conservatory keep its watch. Sleep. And let the lagoon keep its slow, dark shine. Sleep. And let Ilva doze in her small chair with her blanket over her knees. Sleep. And let the cuttlefish drift down into its own quiet color. Sleep. And let the panes hold the last of the light for you, so you do not have to hold it. Sleep. Sleep. You are here. You are warm. You are held.